Hi, this is Nick Lightbody. I thought I would have a look at how you actually make a new theme, but based on an existing one. Looking at the screen, we've got a green-based theme for Bolnar.com. It's a theme design called Barley, which I've done another video on, where I've shown you how to find the palette of colours you require in a photograph. In this case, we're going to be slightly more arbitrary and just decide that we quite like the colour balance in this in various ways, but we want something that's very much more blue, dark blue and shades of blue rather than green. So the first thing we need to do is to open up themes, find the theme that we want to use as the basis, as the starting point, so we don't have to do everything, think the whole thing through. We've got a pattern that we can then follow, and click this button here to make a duplicate. I've just done this already, in fact, and here is the duplicate theme. I've called it Midnight because it's going to be dark blue, but currently Midnight and Barley are exactly the same, other than the name and the theme ID. And so, having done that, we're now going to change our default theme for our site to Midnight and then start editing it. So let's close themes. We'll go into the site manager and change the default theme to Midnight. And setting the default theme is quite important. Besides anything else, when you make a new page, it's automatically set to the default theme, and that makes things easier. As you will know from other videos and from the various help things we've published on deskspace.com, you can set a theme, a different theme for every page. So, for example, this page is currently Midnight. We go to the next page, we could perhaps use Havana for that. The next page we could use Parchment for that. Okay, let's go back into the manager here, and you can see the theme numbers appear in small print here: Midnight, Havana and Parchment. A lot of flexibility. You also know that whatever you have for a theme, for a page, you can do an override. So here are the overrides, and if, for example, we were to say that the page default background colour was going to be aqua, that's all you do. The theme isn't altered, it's just this particular page is altered, and that gives you a lot of flexibility. So let's get on with changing our theme. Now, as it happens, on the Bolnar.com site, it's got a portfolio, and this particular picture, a shot that I took in the Maldives in Gan a few years ago, it's got a very nice deep blue up here. So I'm going to use my colour picker, go over there, pick up that blue. I'm getting 19, 24, 47. Let's try a couple more hits on that. Colours are funny things, but I'm sure that all of you who are artists and have trained know a lot more about it than I do. But basically, from a photographic point of view and a visual point of view, colours vary enormously, don't they? But that's about right. We'll try using that colour as a base, see what it looks like. We can always change the opacity. As long as we use rgba to define our colour, we can change the opacity, and then we can essentially wash it on with more or less depth. So we're going to change the background colour here to 17, 23, 24. So we're in theme, so we're altering the theme itself, and we are currently on Midnight, so we're altering the right theme. We don't at this stage want to be altering our the Barley theme. We want to leave that as it is, so we can use that when required. 2345.9. Okay, so there's just one single color change, the default background color, bang, and we've got that sort of look. Now let's go on and use the same pattern or derivation. Now, with the page title previously, we used something different, but we're going to use that there, I think. So we're going to use the same colour there, but point 2. Now remember that point 2 on the page title, which is here, it does in fact on the page at the moment put a slight bit of additional darkness there, but the real purpose of that is that if we put an image behind it, then we are going to overlay that image with a bit of darkness to give a better contrast for our title here. So it may or may not be required depending on really how you've done the rest of the site. We could, of course, decide to put an image background in there, and perhaps we could try and use that image that we're basing this this on. Let's see, what is that image called? Easiest way to see that is going to be to look at the page. We actually need to go to the original page. Which one are we on here? Photographic portfolio, that's right. Okay, we can change that from parchment back to midnight. And this page here is actually image 1002 JPEG. So we can use that as a background by merely doing that. And that automatically adds that image as the background for the header, for the H1. Okay, so let's just do the same thing on the rest of our pages. Alright, and that one as well. So we're moving away from this darker look and going for a much bluer one. Okay, quite like that. Quite a nice bright white sort of image. Now, we need to now deal with the boxes and so on. So this here, looking at it, consultants and designers, this is H4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So the H4, let's use the same colour and see how that looks before we start looking for a different one. That's not going to work, is it? Because even if we put that up a bit to 0.7, it's too close to the background really to work. Of course, if we don't need that, we can do it like this instead. Maybe it's better without the boxes at all. Simpler. Boxes can provide emphasis, the background boxes, but of course you then can run into difficulties with how they join up, because each box is based on the text. The size of the box will be determined by the size of the text, and hence working without boxes is a simpler option. So, next thing we should look at is the text on the right here, currently in a green. I'm actually feeling like we could just go and take another sample of our convenient image here, and let's find a midish blue like that. 235713 6. So let's copy that one down into H4. I beg your pardon, it's not that, it's the text, isn't it? It's going to be the H3 style text there. Going to give it 22, 57, 136 and leave it on 0.9. Oh, that's not going to work, is it, at all? Now that could of course work if we give it a light background, and that's the thing, isn't it? But I want to keep this page quite simple. It really is focused on the content, not on the look, as in my view any web page should be. So let's change that to white and take the easy option. Okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. Now the styling lines, they need dealing with. Of course we are going to have to find a blue somewhere that's going to do a job for us, because we do need some contrast if we're going to use anything else. So let's go and find a pale blue over here. And that's a border there. Now the way the borders work, as I think you can probably imagine, see or extrapolate from the information you've got, you define a border colour, which as ever can be an HTML colour, it can be an RGB colour, an rgba colour, or a hex colour. And the advantage of using rgba is you can control opacity. The disadvantage is some older browsers will ignore it. We do have a template within the deskspaceCMS system called a compatible template, which will automatically set up your the CSS in your page so that all the RGBA colours are first stated as RGB, then as RGBA, and hence if you have an older style browser to view it, the RGB will work and the RGBA will be ignored, and hence you'll get the solid versions of the colours that you've selected for RGBA. The disadvantage of that is, of course, it doubles all of that part of the CSS, which of course is going to have a slight performance hit, but it's an option. We've provided you with the tools in deskspaceCMS to CMS rather, to do that. Okay, so let's see how those blues look. Do we want them less? Let's do it as a 0.3, or do we want it as more, as a 0.9 perhaps? I think that's probably about right. What thickness do we need? Do we want to try it with a 2? Okay, a little bit heavy perhaps, but for the sake of argument we'll keep it as a 2. We then have to decide on the colour for the H1 type, and as a general preference I think blue and white goes very well together, but we want something a little bit different here, and generally speaking going with orange and blue works, and going with red and blue doesn't work, because orange and blue are complementary and red and blue have some form of clash. So let's take a look here at orange. Now if I what can I do? I need to find standard orange, don't I? So if I initially define the background of 2 as orange, that'll give us a sample to use. Let's see what colour that is in these terms. So it's 252, 149, and 10. So that's real base orange. So now what I'm going to do is to take that out and change the color of this text to that. So it's 252, 149, and 10. Okay, that obviously works better immediately on the screen than the reddish colour we had from our barley design. We now need to deal with the menu background. We need to deal with the top navigation as well. Let's go to menus here. Actually, first of all, let's just pick up the right colours. We want to use page default as the starting point, unless we want to reverse stuff out. Let's use page default for the moment. Menus, background colour, top nav. You've got that on 0.5, and we've got that on 0.7. So we've just got a little bit of extra contrast there, which is probably quite a good thing. I'm going to leave the yellow. I think the yellow works reasonably well, but maybe we should change it. No, I think that's okay. I think that hypertext links in a page should be very obvious. If they're too subtle, then some less experienced users can actually miss them altogether. So I would tend to go on the slightly more careful side there and make them obvious. Still not particularly happy that we've got these parts on the right looking too similar, but perhaps we can just change the justification on those. So this is H3 is here. Let's make those justified instead and just give that a little different look that way. And let's also make those H2s a little bit narrower or wider. Which way would be better, do you think? Let's make them wider actually. So let's make it 50%. I think the justification looks better, slightly wider. There's obviously going to be more even if the line length is not too short. Equally, it's a bit heavy with the stuff on the right, which is supposed to be more of a note, overpowering the stuff on the left. So let's move it back to say 58%, just to push it down a bit. So do you see there that we're changing the left-hand column width, and the right-hand column will be the balance of 100%. Okay, so our espresso is nearly finished, and we've nearly finished our site redesign. I'm happy with the orange here. I'm happy with the white up here. That matches the logo quite nicely. You could have it much simpler again, but part of the purpose of doing this is just showing the number of options you have. And while we talk about options, let's just make the page title a bit more spread out. Let's make the page title, let's put the page title into a monospace font like Courier or Typewriter. We can use that one there maybe. We can just get rid of those reminders which are all out of date. I don't actually understand how the OS 10 reminder system works because it keeps on giving me things I've already done. Okay, so that looks nicer there, I think. It's more appropriate. Let's look at the next page. Let's rebuild. Are we on midnight? Yes, let's rebuild the page. Okay. Okay, I'm quite liking that. One thing you can also notice here that there's more text in the H1 here than there was on the previous page. And you see how the image background expands to cover it. Basically, that image will get as big as you want to cover whatever text you have. It's completely automatic. Okay, we've done the top, we've done the bottom. We've one thing we can just put in here is I can show you a little thing that if you put a number as the first character of the page title, then if we also make a new page here, we'll just call it examples 1, for example, and we're going to allow that to show in the index. We'll number it 21 to make it come after. Actually, that wants to be 3 there. That's 3. Call that 31, so that examples 1 comes up as essentially a subcategory of 3. If we now go and rebuild all the pages, you'll see that the page contents, you get a slightly different color here. So in fact the page items in the menu that have got a number at the beginning have a slightly different color to the ones that don't. They're actually slightly lighter as a form of highlight. Now, the degree of that color will change a great deal depending on how it contrasts with the background. It's a subtle effect there because we've got dark on dark. But if we changed that around so that the color used here was a much lighter color, then you'd get quite a lot of contrast between those two things. It just means that if you arrange your pages in the appropriate order, so they come up in the right order in the site index in the menu at the bottom of each page, and if you use this little feature of adding a number at the beginning of the main sections, then you can make your menu have visual breaks in it. Okay, so I've just about finished my espresso, and in that time we've made a new design, and I'm going to rebuild and export the entire site, which is only a small site as we know, just 3 or 4 pages. If I now, it took just a few seconds to do that, if I just go back into it now, let's look at it in the full viewer method. Okay, let's look at, there's the first page, second page, third page, there's the photography, and that's quite, yeah, that looks okay. I'm happy with that. And now I can take a look at it on the internet and check it's correct, check that my pages have all updated. If I go to bolnor.com, there is my first page, portfolio page, consultancy. Okay, so there we are. That's how to create a new theme in deskspaceCMS while drinking a single large espresso. Thanks very much for watching and listening.